I would be willing to bet that for most people, the Passover is primarily, when you think of the Passover, it is primarily about the sacrifice of the lamb. And that is more than reasonable, right? But in the Jewish custom, the Passover meal was one element of the whole celebration. Namely, it is also called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So, not only during the Passover meal is, the eating of unleavened bread, pita bread, a critical component. It is also mandatory throughout the intervening week, right? This is where we get our practice of octave from. So you would not only on the Passover day celebrate the feast, but then over the next 7 days you sort of have every meal becomes a sort of mini Passover. Now the reason why I say this is because John points it out, right? When does Jesus do this miracle of the loaves and fishes? Passover was near. It would be one thing to do a miracle with bread any other day of the week. That would already have hearkened to the coming of the Messiah so much for these people because they were expecting miraculous events with the bread of heaven. They were expecting the return of the manna. But to couple it to Passover, this feast of bread, that is and it's not just like one feast among many, right? Like it's the defining celebration of Judaism. And Jesus does this on purpose, and of course, these are things that are not lost on the Sanhedrin. These are not lost on the Pharisees. Well, he's trying to make himself look like the Messiah, which of course was supposed to spurn in them. Well, maybe he is the Messiah. They didn't get it yet. But Jesus does this so that, this section of the Gospels, this section of the church's lectionary throughout the year is supposed to be looking back on the ministry of Jesus and pointing out all the places where he really did, in a powerful way, foreshadow his death and resurrection and the Eucharist and his coming as the Messiah, all of those things throughout his entire earthly ministry. And so he goes out in this deserted place where there are no options. Just like the Israelites were driven to the desert so that they could no longer rely on the powers and the deities of Egypt. They could only rely on the Lord. And there, the Lord fed them with manna from heaven and the quail in the evening. But this time, Jesus drives them out into the desert and doesn't feed them with miraculous food that's just enough for them to eat. Instead, he sort of peels back the corruption of original sin, and a little goes a long way. And he feeds these people with next to nothing. Because the natural order is suspended, right? You give us 5, and remember, a loaf of bread is not like a loaf of bread that feeds 3 people. This is like a single person's loaf. Like it's a slightly bigger dinner roll. It's 5 of these things. And 2 fish. And again, don't imagine these giant things. It's little dried fish. Like this is somebody's backpack snacks while they're going hiking. And he does this to show them an inkling, a foretaste of what he's going to be doing as he goes forward towards Holy Week.